That seems new. Okay, so we are live.
Great. I call this meeting of the Gloucester Community Preservation Committee to order at 6:03 on June 15, 2021. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. In the interest of government transparency with regards to deliberations and decisions made by the Community Preservation Committee, and according to open meeting law, since this meeting was posted as a Zoom meeting, this meeting is recorded by video and audio will be conducted by remote. Additionally, all votes taken by the Community Preservation Committee during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching on a computer or device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. I'm going to introduce all the members of the committee that are present, and any other panelists that will be attending. We'll also be introducing them by name. I am Matt Lundberg. Also here are Pam Toby, at-large member and co-chair, Jennifer Lee Levitz Aronson, Carrie McKenna, Heidi Wakeman, Henry McCarl, and Bob Whitmarsh. Any questions so far for anybody? All righty. Then I am going to proceed directly to the agenda. Tonight is an exciting night for us because it's the first round of applicant presentations for our 2021 projects we're considering. We'll be hearing tonight from 4 applicants. The Annisquam Village Church will be up first, followed by Ocean Alliance, the Cemeteries Advisory Committee, and the Trustees of Reservation with the Ravenswood Project. A few ground rules for the presentations, and we'll remind this of everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, we've got Bill Cuff raising his hand. Bill, have you joined us? Oh, sorry. Let's see, I think I need to allow Bill in. There he is.
We go.
Bill Cuff is also with us.
I've been here.
Go ahead, Bill.
I've been here. Good evening. I've been here all along. I had a little technical difficulties. I heard the opening and everything.
Very good. Thank you. Some ground rules for the presentations, and I'll repeat these when folks come online if they're not on already. We'd like to limit your presentation to 5 minutes. All of the applicants for tonight have submitted very complete applications through the Neighborly portal. So we've got a good chance to go over what you've submitted. We'd like to allot as much time as we'd like for questions and answers, which I'm sure there will be a few. We'll just proceed from one project to the next. I think that's about it. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is that we will not be hearing public comment at this meeting, nor will be on our next meeting, which will be to hear the other 4 applications. The meeting after that will be open to public comment once we've had a chance to hear all the presentations, and you have as well. We can deliberate within the committee as well as hear from the public at that time. So unless there are any other questions, let's see if we've got members from the Annisquam Village Church ready to present, then we will add them. Jamie, how do we do that?
Yep, so I'm going to promote Peter Lawrence to the status of panelist.
Right.
And if there's anyone else from that organization and you let me know, I can promote them as well. Well, it looks like Nancy is raising her hand as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you should add Nancy Gaselli.
You both should be all set.
Okay, now, oh, great. Share screen, Bringo.
Excellent.
Okay, it says you've disabled screen sharing. Can I not share slides?
You should be able to, Jamie, do you,
It's-
I don't have control. Jamie, can you allow Peter to share a screen?
I can certainly try. I would have thought promoting to panelist would make that feasible.
Right, you don't have a share screen button, Peter?
I do, but when I push it, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Huh.
So it's
Alright.
not letting,
I think I fixed it.
all right, you did.
Yay, thank you. Thank you for your patience.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, so,
All right.
okay.
Ex-
So Nancy, there you are.
All right, excellent. Well, good evening, everyone. And I am Nancy Gaselli. I am the board chair of Annisquam Village Church. And along with Peter Lawrence, a dear member of our congregation and project manager for the AVC preservation work, we are delighted to be before you this evening to discuss the community preservation grant proposal. This church has stood at the head of Lobster Cove for almost 200 years, with our beginnings going back even further to 1728. AVC has been a place of gathering for a very long time, and when fully restored, will serve Gloucester for years to come. Why? Because we are all about community. At AVC, people come from many denominations or none at all. What holds us together is that we are called to love our neighbor, and we take that seriously. As our pastor, Reverend Sue Kohler Arsenault, states at the beginning of every church service, you're welcome here wherever you are on your spiritual journey. Our outreach programs serve those in need in Gloucester and Cape Ann. We volunteer year-round at the Open Door and prepare and serve the annual Thanksgiving meal. We prepare and deliver lunches to the Action Network every month. We support the Grace Center, Pathways for Children, and prepare food and fundraise to help families in crisis through Family Promise. When a prior pastor retired, the AVC Search Committee met with various Gloucester leaders who advised that our new pastor continue our commitment to serve the needy in Gloucester and be attuned to the changing needs of this city. Reverend Sue Kohler Arsenault, AKA Cape Ann Reverend Sue, became our new pastor in February 2020 after completing her sabbatical ministry at the Rockport Congregational Church. And she fits the bill perfectly, with a lifetime of commitment to those in need, from the impoverished to those in hospice. She's deeply connected to this community as a leader of the Cape Ann clergy, and you'll often find her reflections on issues of the day in the Gloucester Daily Times. Despite the restrictions of the pandemic, we have grown membership, and this community is thriving. At the outset of the pandemic, we took services online, attracting viewers from as far away as California and Texas, who now go to a church located in Gloucester, Mass. Currently, we do offer hybrid services. At AVC, we do not walk away from difficult issues. We created a diversity and inclusion group, increasing our compassion and commitment to justice. We formed a creation care committee, actively involved in addressing climate issues locally, and have aligned with Bright Action, a national online platform that enables Gloucester residents to lower their carbon footprint. This historic church is now a model of sustainability for Gloucester, with newly installed solar on the roof. In partnering with Cedar Rock Gardens, we are designing a native plant garden attuned to attract pollinators. We look forward to once again holding concerts open to the public and to the annual Sea Fair, a Gloucester summer event now in its 175th year. This fall, the Arts and Crafts Show will once again showcase Cape Ann artists, and AVC will soon host public lectures and book group discussions in the renovated Cove Room. This is a thriving community, And wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Thank you. And now over to Peter.
Thank you, Peter Lawrence. I'm head of the building project for the church. And I'll start out by saying there's been a meeting house or church on this site since 1728. This building was built in 1830. This ad from the Gloucester Telegraph of 14 May 1830 asked for proposals for this building with a stone foundation to be completed by the beginning of December. Not exactly our schedule for buildings these days, but what's important is to remember that this meeting house and church has continued to be open to all. You kindly gave us a grant of $30,000 in 2018 towards our extensive restoration and renovation of the interior of the building. The work began with improvements to the lower level cove room, which included this space here, included new lighting, new ceiling, new detailing on the walls, new floor. And in addition, we did a major work completely rebuilding the seven large sanctuary windows. And finally, we've added a lift to truly make this building accessible to all. The restoration work that I would start by saying that it's important to restore this exterior, not only to preserve the exterior of the building, but to reflect the quality and expanded potential of the interior of the building. In addition to public functions, we've also added a generator, which allows this building to serve as an emergency shelter. Now, work on the exterior is going to begin with the shutters. And the shutters, the 6 large windows on each side of the building, which were rebuilt, the shutters are missing their top section. They're also sagging, so they're going to be rebuilt with the added section at the top. The front doors are going to be rebuilt using the existing doors, but turn the double doors into a single door to meet ADA requirements. But again, using the material of those existing doors. We'll also, this is one of the last remaining wooden downspout with its capital. We'll restore all of the downspouts to this format with a capital, not 2 pieces of wood, however. You'll possibly be glad to know they might last longer. And finally, we will redo the lower clapboard siding, some of which is rotted, and then repaint the entire exterior of the building. We sincerely hope that you will favorably consider our proposal, our application, and this will allow us to reflect the quality of the interior. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and we are open for questions.
Committee members, if you want to raise hand, or I'm not sure how we want to do that, but raising your hand literally. Oh, Peter, could you unshare your screen, please?
Yeah, yep. I'm
Great,
working on it, trying to find. Whoops.
Always a
I've
challenge.
lost- I know I've lost my, where's the mouse?
There we
it
go.
is.
We're good. Bill, I think you raised your hand. You want to go first?
Yeah, I had just a quick question. Obviously, a great organization, AVC. I see that you're anticipating the cost to be 43,000 and you're looking for a grant of 14. Is that correct?
Yes.
And, with the cost going up to COVID, are you still anticipating the same cost? And if so, how will you make up the difference?
Yes, all good questions. We have currently in our building fund, we have about, I think it's 16,000 left that's not been designated. And we also have several members of the congregation who have willing to put up a matching gift so that right now we believe we can cover it, and we will keep working on this fundraising. But between what we've got and the commitment to do a matching gift, we're covered.
Oh, great, thank you. And one other question in my reading, because I'm new to the ABC. I know the church is 200 years old, but it's been around for 300 years, correct?
Yes,
Where was it beforehand?
it was in the same location. It was just, it basically, that ad you saw was to build a new meeting house on that location for more people and, you know, a better building.
Thank you.
Exactly the same location.
Anybody else? Yeah, Bob.
I'm quite impressed with the Annisquam Village Church. They're more than just a religious organization. They reach out to the community in a major way. And I believe that, and I think we all can agree, the church is very iconic to Gloucester, and particularly to Annisquam. Just can't picture Annisquam without the church. And it's just wonderful, all the programs that they have, both the socialization and for the need for those who are less fortunate, and for emergency situations, for sheltering. So I think they look to cover all the bases of being a good community member. And I'm very impressed. Just want to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple of questions, if I may, Peter. First one was painting, I think, was budgeted at 32,000. Does that that's for the pieces that are being done, shutters, downspouts, the doors, clapboards. It's not to repaint the entire church, is it?
No, it is. It includes that.
Oh, it is.
That, I mean, that's the largest piece of the, now the total budget is more because the painting budget is about 30,000.
Right.
But the total budget is 48, I
48,
think,
right.
is total.
Yeah, but so it is to paint the entire church once these other
Absolutely.
pieces are restored. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
And the only other question I had was in the application for funding sources, the non-CPC fund says loan from endowment fund to be repaid with a campaign raise. So does that mean that the loan from the endowment fund is there? Whether repaying it with a campaign raise is just a fundraising you'll do to replenish your endowment fund, right?
Okay, well, now we're further along than we were at the time we wrote that. So we now have, because we didn't know what we would have left in the building fund. And so we don't need to do that. We've got, as I said, some money, about 16,000 in the building fund. I think it's actually 16. And then we've got a pledge for matching that, an anonymous pledge to match that by several members of the church. So we know we can cover the complete funding without doing any loan.
Got it. Great. And this isn't a question, more a comment. Nice to see that you've got it planned to get this done this year. It looks like, right?
That's the idea. I think it was a little optimistic. I think somehow there was a bit of a misprint. I think it said all the work was going to be done in a month. That's not going to happen. But we hopefully we can do it this year. But you know, we know that it may slide into next year because we don't know when we can officially start.
Right.
Because we know we can't start the work that you're going to fund until after we get notification officially.
Right. Good. That's all the questions I had. Anybody else?
I'm good.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter and Nancy, for your presentation and your time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're in deliberations for, nothing, the next step for our side isn't for at least a month, probably a month and a half. And then final recommendations are made in September. So thank you again. And it's a great application. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
your
opportunity.
commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Jamie, next up is Ocean Alliance. Can you tell if who's there, if they can raise their hand to, and you can push them up as panelists?
Of course.
There's Alicia.
Looks like Alicia Pensarosa is here. So Alicia, I have promoted you to panelist. You should be all set to speak or share your screen, however you prefer.
Yes, I will share my screen. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. So Ocean Alliance is headquartered at the former Tar and Watson Paint Factory. So this is obviously a beautiful site on the water where it serves our whale conservation research, education, and community programming very well. We purchased the site in 2009 and have been restoring the site since. We moved into our offices in 2013. So this has been an ongoing project for us. But because it's on the land of former paint factory, it does come with some challenges. So we have been working around those. Our goal is to turn this into an ocean innovation center so we can house our own research as well as welcome other researchers to use our spaces and provide community educational programs. So the next step is, before we go into the next phases, is our goal is to replace the two warehouse buildings that were taken down in 2011 and put those back. And also to restore the manufacturing building, which is the iconic building on the harbor that has the manufacturing lettering on it. So we started going through this process last year and had many discussions with the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act review, and found that we can't do what we've been doing, which is submitting projects one at a time. Now we have to submit environmental permitting as a everything all-encompassing project. And so that's why we're requesting your help with funding. So as you can see, this is what we started with when we purchased the buildings. So I think we've come a long way since then. These are where it says Gloucester Sea Jacket Marine Paints. Those are the two former buildings that were taken down as they were falling down. And then this is the main manufacturing building. This is a site pretty much as it looks today. So we've done a lot of work to the site, including repairing the exteriors and interiors of these two brick buildings, removing the building, doing some site remediation, installing new docks, etc. So we're really happy the way it looks today. And if anyone hasn't been down to the site in a while, please let me know and I'm happy to give you a tour. We welcome the public on the site to, to walk the grounds, etc. So anyone is always welcome. So the next phase will be permitting for all of these elements. So I can go through them one by one, but one would be restoring the manufacturing building. Since it's right on the water and it's in the FEMA flood elevation of 22, this will be quite a project. In addition, the interiors are contaminated with lead, chromium, mercury, arsenic. So environmentally, it will be a big project. We would restore and cap this, what we call the stone pier. These two buildings, we would get permitting to put these back up. We'd expand the parking lot so we can host more events. And we'd bring all the necessary utilities to the site. So connecting it to city sewer, upgrading our electric, which is in process now. And then adding a small boat ramp so small research vessels can launch from our property. So our total estimated budget is $263,000 for the permitting and plans needed to go through that process. And we're requesting $151,000 from the CPA. We're expecting it to take approximately 12 months to go through the whole process, from structural engineering plans all the way to the final environmental permits. So we would start in January 2022. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have or review any of the plans.
Thanks, Alicia. Appreciate it. I know I've got questions. I'm sure many of us do. So who wants to go first? Any questions for Alicia? Pam, you're muted, Pam.
Sorry, if you hear noise in the background, it's just the baby. I just have a quick question, a clarification about the budget. So I saw that you guys had us listed for, it's a 151,000 that you're requesting. But on the budget, the CPA funds added up to 121.5, I think. So I was just curious, does the CPA funds, will they be paying for the soft costs as well? I just wanted to double check.
Yeah,
Okay.
So Pam, you're right. I noticed the same math calculation in the budget when they had the breakdown. It added up to 121.5.
Okay.
So I was
Sorry about that.
unclear.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
no.
unclear exactly what you were looking for.
So then the additional 30,000 is just for those soft costs that you guys had listed as Ocean Alliance covering, but the CPA funds would cover those.
yes.
And those soft costs included like lawyer, was it lawyer fees, I believe, and things like that?
Yeah, lawyer fees are just additional consultants. Some of this will be kind of we won't know until we go through the process.
So Alicia, if you go back to the map for a second, I don't know if you can do that. And just for the other people on the committee, Carrie and I had the opportunity to visit the site. And because one of the concerns that I had as far as, historic preservation is why are we paying for, why are we looking to fund a proposals or, drawings, et cetera. But I think you've got a very extensive project there. And what would you estimate the total cost of the renovations that you would like to do at that site to include?
Yeah, we're estimating about 10 million right now.
And the challenge is a lot of that funding that they can get from different sources, as she mentioned earlier, they cannot apply until they get all of this other work done. And that's why you're coming and looking specifically for a grant from CPA for the preservation of the manufacturing building, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we had the opportunity, we were encouraged to apply for a $5 million grant. And we made it through the first round, but we needed to go through the MEPA process and we just didn't have enough money raised for that. So unfortunately, and of course that all timed with at the start of the pandemic. So we weren't comfortable putting all of that money out there without proper funding.
Yeah, right. And so I think that to have that perspective helps in evaluating this grant request. And you received money previously from CPA for the seawall reconstruction as well, correct?
Yes.
And maybe you can just fill me in again on that.
Yeah, so last year we received money for the seawall reconstruction and it's actually supposed to start tomorrow. So I can provide an update once it starts.
Thank you.
Alicia, I have a couple of questions. The 2A and 2B.
Yes.
By the way, and I have to admit, I'm very ignorant of the overall plans for the paint factory. Are those for expanded usage as opposed to what's in the other buildings? Can you speak to what those will be used for?
Yes. So those two buildings were the former warehouse buildings, and our plan is to put them back as part of our Ocean Innovation Center. So we would be welcoming other users in ocean research to create sustainable technologies to study the ocean. So it could be anywhere from startups focusing on aquaculture to, us using the spaces for our own SnotBot and drone technology. Could be, fishermen or other like wind farm technologies and ocean monitoring. And so it would be almost, I don't want to use the term maker space because I think people get confused with what that means. but it would have equipment and machines to make any kind of prototypes or parts.
Got it. Great, thank you. My next question, so this project, this current project that you're going for, it's basically all, this is a question, not a statement. It's permitting plans, remediation planning, estimates. It's getting everything in order so that you can get a MIPA environmental review and get all the ducks in order so that then you can go for the actual construction and build planning funding that you might get through the federal government or elsewhere, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so there's nothing physical that's going on with this project. It's all planning and environmental review and so forth.
Exactly.
Great. And I would assume that $263,000 project, it's going to be that size, even if 2A and 2B weren't part of the overall plan. I mean, this is a big plan. Actually, maybe it's not. Does this also include kind of the construction or architectural plans that you're going to do for each one of these pieces?
Yes, it won't be like final architectural plans, but they would like to see some of the design drawings to understand what we're putting back, how the buildings will be rebuilt, anything that will touch the bottom in the wetland areas. So all of that is in consideration, and pretty much, except for like one corner, pretty much the whole site is in wetland, and it has to go through the Conservation Commission and MIPA. So
okay, great. And my last question was, I know the future is a long way off, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, hopefully we get this done and you move on to the next stages. Do you think there's enough grant money out there and fundraising capability that you have to be able to pursue this without major participation from the CPC? And I only mention that because this is a big number for CPC projects, relatively speaking. But you've got a long way to go once you get beyond this. So we would never be able to participate at the percentage levels that we're doing now. But I just want you to be aware of that going forward. And any comments?
yes, so we would definitely apply to the Economic Development Administration, and we have private funders who helped us purchase the site. That we would like to go back to again to request funding. So I think we wouldn't go back to the CPA for the actual construction. We have other funders for that, but those funders would like to see that we have additional city and private support before we ask for those big numbers.
Gotcha. Great, thanks. Those are my questions. Anybody else?
So I guess any question I had was answered. And I think most of the questions I had were answered when Bill and I went on the site visit, which was very interesting. They've got quite an undertaking there. And I just wanted to reiterate that the bulk of this is for the MIPA information that they have to address and to get to that next level of funding, which we did have a very interesting conversation on that. It does seem that they pretty much have that in place. At least in theory, and they just, to access that money, they need this money to get the permitting that they need to have done on the entire site because of what they're doing. MIPA is requiring that. I think they've got a wonderful facility there, and when it's finished, it's going to be really incredible and such a wonderful blessing for Gloucester. So I'm very much in favor of this, and wish you well in going forward with all you have to do, because it's quite involved.
Thank you.
I have a question that I'm not sure if it's the right time for it. It may be for later, just among committee members. So I just wonder if it's ever done that we, once the major funding is in place, can any of our advance funding be reimbursed to us? In other words, as you get huge grants, as there's a lot of money put into the project later, can any of what we've put out for this part of it come back to us?
Well, just to clarify, if we do apply for grants, it would be for construction costs. It wouldn't be for additional funds. I don't think anyone would give us additional funds unless we requested them. So if that was a requirement, then I guess we could put that in our future grant applications.
Well, I'm just suggesting that maybe you could, in future grant applications, think about reimbursing us or in some way paying it forward, that our the CPC money enabled you to get all that other money. And I don't know if I don't even know if we're allowed to do that. I'm just suggesting it as something to look at.
Yeah, and I think that part of it, Jennifer Lee, is the part we probably ought to talk among with.
Right, that's why I was saying.
I don't know either. I don't know if we can do that or not.
Okay.
Interesting to find out.
Mm-hmm. Because it's extremely obviously worthwhile, important, and we want to do it for many reasons. Just looking at what makes it the best all around.
Anybody else? Questions? All right. Well, Alicia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
We'll be
Thank
we'll be back to you with any further questions, and I'm sure that I know, speaking for myself, I'd definitely come by, and it's been a while since I've been down. I'd love to see the site, so we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the Cemetery Advisory Committee. If someone's here to represent, if you can raise your hand, and Jamie will add you as a panelist. Thank you, Sandy.
Yep, Sandy, you've been promoted, so you should be able to speak. And
Chris as well.
Chris. Okay, so Sandy and Chris, you've both been promoted.
Great, thank you. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. How we'll set this up is I will present some slides, and Chris may not know this yet, but she can, what she can do is answer the questions. That's how we'll divide it.
Yay.
We both know a lot about it. So I do want to say that we were here in 2017, and you awarded us with $9,500, and we put that money to good use. And so we're back again, needing some more. Let's see, presenter view. Okay. All right. We're from First Parish Burial Ground in particular, and we're looking for some money to do some stone preservation. We're a city-owned cemetery advisory committee, which means we don't have any money. We don't have a means of getting any kind of funding or donations. So we are asking for the full amount, which is $9,800 this time around. All right, the program area that we were going into is historic preservation. First Parish Burial Ground was established in 1644 and is on the National Register of Historic Places. In 2008, a preservation plan was funded for $10,000 by the Gloucester Historical Commission, and we've been working our way through that, following the steps to continue to restore that. Not just us, but in the 1980s and the 1990s, groups came before us related to the city or historical commission or historic burial ground committees. And since we're the latest incarnation of that committee, we are Chris Manny and Carol Kelly also. The CPA funding would pay for the hiring of trained restoration professionals. We've been able to do a good amount of basic restoration ourselves, and with a lot of volunteers and outside training organizations that use our training ground, from like the National Park Service. And at the same time, they also restore stones for us, and they continue to train us. The goal is to return in the best condition possible all the displaced gravestones and or fragments to their historical sites, in this case, First Parish. As part of that request, $9,800, the project would begin in May and end in the fall. For many years, it was the oldest cemetery, and as a result of that, if you can imagine, from 1644 all the way through to 400 years, actually, as a matter of fact, almost 400 years. It's been deteriorating. It's had vandalism. It had a railroad go through, and we've been really looking toward mostly funding to help us with the more complex stones, and I'll show those in a little bit. And we have the backing of the City Council, the Mayor, and the full support of DPW Mike Hale, who we work very closely with. And in fact, the City Council placed us back in place. I don't want to use the word resurrected, but there it is on my slide, in 2015. And we've been working diligently since 2015 in this current group of people. Our mission is also to continue the improvement in care, management, and maintenance of city-owned cemeteries. And these are the cemeteries that are just covered by the city, not privately owned. The gravestones that we're looking at in particular range in that early 1700s to about 1718, and a little bit further up into the mid 1700s. We found several stones up in the DPW building, up in the attic, that were put there actually for safe storage. But as you can imagine, they've kind of gotten dusty. They're on pallets, and they are the oldest cemetery stones in the city. We need to get them back where they belong. However, to do that, and you will see, they're in a little bit of rough condition, but they're readable. Okay, those people that are buried in First Parish are the first settlers. They're the midwives, ministers, farmers, mill owners, ship captains, Revolutionary War, and Civil War. You can imagine. And in fact, some of them are buried on top of each other, only because the early graves in 1644 were used with wooden markers, and the first slate markers didn't come along till about 1715 in the cemetery. So sometimes they didn't know exactly who was underneath when they put down those early 1700 stones. So if you think about the sea captains, the war veterans, the midwives, and those early founders, and many others, characters, we want to showcase many of those for the 400th anniversary. And we feel like another part of the community needs that we meet is serving the population by continuing to educate the community. We've had Eagle Scouts in there. We've had Girl Scouts. We've had schools in there that have come. And, it's hard to find. It's on Centennial Ave. It's really easy to miss as soon as you go over the rickety wooden bridge that spans the railway. But we really need to generate the respect for these sacred places. They're our city's ancestors. Right. We expect these stones, the stones that you'll see tonight are 300 years old, but we expect them to last for another 100. You know, they're not new stones, but they should outlive all of us. I think everybody here. We feel like we have a city's commitment. Look at this, look at all the people that are behind the long-term goals now that we're on the radar. We feel like we have the backing of all the city officials, and things like this give it significance, getting grants. We have letters of recommendation from the historical, we have the backing of the Historical Commission, the Daughters of the American Revolution, Veteran Services, Sawyer Free Library, the archives. The success of our project will be measured when the stones are repaired. We have a definitive list, and if the preservationist thinks that it won't take as much money to repair these, he's pretty certain. He's given us a quote and a budget estimate. We have an additional number of stones on there that we also want him to repair. We want to also make the cemetery visible, accessible, and we've seen an uptick in because of genealogy and people just wanting to know where their ancestors are buried. Once the cemetery looks better, people are more apt to respect it. We can already see that since 2015 that we've been involved. And we feel like it contributes toward its preservation. Okay, ongoing maintenance, as I said, about the 100 years, being under the direction of the DPW, it has significantly increased its commitment to the maintenance and preservation. Mike Hale, the director, has given us a yearly budget for materials. DPW isn't allowed to touch the stones, but he pays for the materials that we use in all of our volunteer sessions, our training sessions, and also to repair the stones. So those materials will be used for that, and that's $2,000 a year. Let's see, every Sunday we conduct trainings, basic restoration work from 9 to noon. And we continue to research and document and load the research up onto Find a Grave, any place that we can answer questions for the general public. Right. This is one such stone that we want to restore. He's a Revolutionary War soldier. His name is William Dulliver. And as you can see, this is our attempt to repair those, but we need to get some of these pieces back in place. This all has to be repaired and detailed beyond our means, and has to be done with marble, stone, and dust. This is Miles Barnes. He was a sea captain that shipwrecked off of the on Salt Island in the middle of winter, and his whole crew was lost. And he was lost in the early 1700s. And all his hands are also buried in the cemetery, but they're in unmarked graves, we suspect, around him because there's small little stones in place that we're not allowed to move. His name was the Ship Industry. And he's in pieces right here. The bottom half is sitting behind him, but it's a clean break, and he just needs to be put one on top of each other here and cleaned. This is one of the DPW stones. And what we're going to do with this one, and I'm going to just quickly go to the next stone. This one also 1715. As you can see, he's also in DPW, is very dusty. Okay. And the technique that we want to use for these is that when a stone isn't complete or doesn't have its bottom, it just gets set into a piece of granite or cement like this. This is another cemetery. And this is the way that we would like to do it because they're the early founders. Right. Do you have any questions?
Committee members, anybody have questions for Sandy?
I just have a quick question. Are there other stones in need of repair beyond, I think there's 9 that you had for this proposal?
We do. And this is the stone list. Those that I mentioned above with the William Dulliver is probably just piecemealing it together. The 4 that were found in the DPW, which would be these right here, these 4 right here, need a backing. And if and these remaining stones right here, right, don't need as complex repairs. Those would more like be a split or need some pinning on them. They're just.
So I guess my question really becomes, is there enough in your request for funding right now to cover all of the stones that are in need of repair? So this 9,000, is it 9,800 that you're asking for? Is that enough to cover all of the stones that are in need of repair at First Parish?
This is how we're going to do it. Yes, if we do it this way. Like Captain Miles Davis will be 325. Richard York, if we put it in granite, will cost 3,000, but if we put it in concrete, it will be $1,900. And they're kind of broken down like that, depending on if we choose to encase it in concrete. The rest of the stones that are on this list here range at $200 a piece. So 200, 200, 200, 200, 200. And then the rest of these in cement is more in line with the 1,900.
So Sandy, after those 9 gravestones are fixed, I believe on your request, do you have future plans to repair other gravestones?
Yes, we have the National Park Service coming back in August to have a 2-day workshop, and we expect we get about 15 of those stones done every time they come. But they're not the more early settler stones that need the granite backing. And also what our Sunday morning group can do is more of the easy stones, like straightening the stones, cleaning the stones, and getting them situated in the cemetery.
Right. Well, you're all doing some wonderful work, and I can see your passion for this. In addition to the question that Kerry asked, vandalism, are you seeing much? I just had a question about vandalism at the cemetery. Are you seeing much of that in this day and age?
Okay, did you see the Gloucester Daily Times today?
I did not see it today, but I think I heard there was an
Yes,
article about. Was
I
that
know
at
it.
first? Was that at First Parish or?
No, it's our sister cemetery that shares a stone wall. And the same group of volunteers work together. And we couldn't believe it, because in all the years that we've been there, 2015, I guess that's 6 years, we haven't had any kind of stone breakage. We're just really surprised. And you know, this is all kind of brand new stuff. We used to have partying when the leaves were like 8 feet high, or the sumac was 6 feet high, and they could hide in the weeds and do damage. This is just new to us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because it'd be a shame if you do all this work and then you have to deal with that vandalism again.
It is, Bill.
I'd like to make a comment, if I could. The Sons of the American Revolution placed a plaque in the First Parish Cemetery honoring the, I don't know, 40 some, I forget just how many it was, veterans that could be identified specifically. And I'm proud to say that I'm a past President General of the SAR. The current President General of the SAR was there for the presentation. It was well received by the cemetery committee. I might say that my wife's research would indicate that there may be as many as 300 additional Revolutionary War soldiers buried in graves that were buried in graves that basically the wooden markers are gone. So that this is a very significant cemetery. And I want to congratulate the cemetery committee for the good work that they've been doing. And I think that the large plaque that the SAR has placed there is the first large plaque to commemorate the Revolutionary War soldiers en masse at a cemetery in Massachusetts. It's the first plaque placed by the Massachusetts Society. So we were a privilege to get that. Thank you very much.
And Hank, thank you so much for attending that event. That it was just an incredible day for us. It was quite an honor.
May I speak also on this point too, that Hank is speaking about all of our veterans, the American Revolution, Civil War, but this particular cemetery is so unique in the sense that it has so many people from various work, trades, merchants, marine, being seafarmen, being midwives, widows, widowers. But to leave you with one thought, there's a gravestone in First Parish that marks the grave of William Sargent II. And y'all, I know that Sargent is a common name, but the importance about him is he's the ancestral roots for Judith Sargent Murray, who was a poet, feminist, and a playwright. And also he leads to our well-known, portrait, our landscape and American portrait, John Singer Sargent. So we just have so many incredible people that have their roots in Gloucester and have led to bigger things and even things that are just historic and making the city great. So we really are trying to preserve this and get these gravestones repaired, restored, so the history can be told again.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? I actually have two quick questions. Sandy, you'd mentioned that documentation, the stones will be documented. Where's the documentation kept?
So right now we have the ability to put it on the city site. And Chris, you might want to handle this. We have given, you might want to talk about the dam database and talk about Dolliver's and Find a Grave.
Sure. So right now, Carol Kelly, another member, and myself, and Sandy's also contributing pieces as well. We are creating a data assessment management file, and in that it's covering all of the Gloucester cemeteries and the marking all of the burials from the early time, the 1600s, up through 1840, when Rockport, left Gloucester itself. In that, we have births and deaths, we have notations of inscriptions, we have, type of stone that was it marble, was it slate? And so we are compiling this enormous database, and it will be available to the public so that anybody can come to Gloucester, look on this particular database and find out where a particular person is buried, and some description about the stone, as well as any other historical pieces that we have. When a stone is restored or repaired, those notations are made on this database, as well as to when they were repaired, what restoration was done. So that's kept up to date as the work is done as well. The Dolliver, I don't know if any of you have been able to go to the cemetery site on the city, but if you go there, you'll see a link for Dolliver, and this particular project was headed by a member, Carol Kelly, and all of his work, which was done in 1895 to 1898, he went around, he was commissioned by the town to record all of the inscriptions on many of the city's cemeteries because they were falling apart. They were decaying even back in the late 1800s. So he took on this particular job, a paid job, and they're now known as Dolliver's, inscriptions work. And now they've been transcribed so that people can read them, and they're searchable. And again, this particular database is available to all of Gloucester as well as to all of I guess everybody in the world, because it's on a major database known as the Digital Commonwealth. So we're trying to, besides bring back the history in a physical sense so that you can see these particular beautiful gravestones, we're also trying to digitize everything so it's available throughout the world, that history of Gloucester. Did that help you?
Did, thank you, Chris.
And Find a Grave. We take a photo and load it up onto the industry standard free access Find a Grave.
Gotcha. Great. And then the only other question I had was that some of these stones are fairly small. And this is just a logistical thing. If you set them in concrete or granite, which look pretty cool, is there space in the First Parish Burial Ground to put, because that's a much bigger assembly than the original stone, right? I'd imagine there is, but I was just curious.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point, and that's something that will have to be taken into consideration because there are some family plots in First Parish, but there are a lot of stone, a lot of grave sites that are just kind of jammed and packed together. There's over 650 markers that we're aware of. And answering someone's question about restoration, we have at least 200 to maybe 300 stones that need to be restored that, professionally, and thinking about the long-term plan. But yes, we would have to consider the spot, for instance, with Samuel York, who was one of the original settlers back in 1650. We would have to look at his particular burial site and kind of design, how big the granite piece could be to in order to embed his stone in that spot, in that granite, and also place it in the historical spot of his known grave site.
Thank you.
That was an excellent.
In 1930, the WPA did a project to map out where all the stones were completely in the cemetery, and we got the maps from DPW in the city. And we know exactly where their stones go to put them back where they belong.
Oh,
but
that's
as Chris
great.
said, yeah, we do know where they all go. We have maps.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions from the committee?
Mine's just a note. I really enjoyed your idea for the 400th anniversary. I think the idea of tours with the period costumes is amazing. I would participate in that. So I think that's a great idea.
Write down her name, Chris.
I know, right? Remember me.
Contact you, okay? Great.
Chris, Sandy, thank you so much.
Nice
Thank
job,
you.
ladies.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for consideration.
Great. All right. So our last presentation of the evening is the trustees of reservations for the Ravenswood project. If you can raise your hands, and Jamie will add you as panelists, and the floor will be yours.
Sorry, sometimes when I'm changing roles, it'll refresh after I've already clicked. So
Sure.
let me see. So Jared, I have promoted you. Bob, I have promoted you. I want to make sure. And then I moved Bob. So I'm bringing Bob back as a panelist as well. My apologies, Bob. Bob Whitmarsh. Now we have 2 Bobs. Oh, no. So I think we should be all set.
Yeah, I don't see Bob Whitmarsh back yet. There he is.
Yay. Thank you.
All right. Bob Murray and Jared, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm just going to try and share my screen with you. If I can figure out how to do it. There we go. Everyone seeing that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Yep.
Skip the slide. Okay. Is it still showing up all right? No, sorry, give me 2 seconds. Sorry, it keeps going to the wrong slide. All right. Do you mind if I just do it from here? It doesn't seem to be working okay, and I can just talk you through it. Is that all right? Perfect. Okay.
Sure.
Well, again, thank you all for having us. So yeah, on behalf of the trustees, so my name is Jared Bowers, and I'm the property director at Ravenswood, and I'm joined by my colleague Bob Murray, who's would serve as project director for this proposal. And yeah, we're really grateful for the chance to speak with you all. Ravenswood's a fantastic resource and one of our most beloved properties. So it's great to be able to speak with other people about it, particularly in the committee. So just to summarize, we're seeking funding through the CPA grant scheme to improve and expand the parking at Ravenswood Park, which would increase public access to meet the existing demand, addressing safety concerns by reducing illegal parking along Route 127 that puts visitors at risk, and making the entrance more welcoming to all visitors. So got a little map here. This is the entire map of Ravenswood. And so down here along the bottom, this is Route 127 or Western Ave down here. And the entrance that I'm talking about in question is just down here at the bottom where my cursor is, down at the bottom. So just to give you a bit of an overview about Ravenswood, it's a 600-acre property that the trustees have been managing for quite some time now. It was dedicated as an early park in the 19th century for the benefit of Gloucester residents. And then in the early 20th century, noted landscape architect Arthur Shercliffe was hired to lay out a series of carriage roads and trails to enhance the visitor experience. Today, the park is it's a very busy spot, as I'm sure many of you will know, by both members of the Gloucester community as well as visitors from the region and beyond, who walk the more than 10 miles of trails. And there's lots of picnic spots along the way, bird watching, they do cross-country skiing, and just general nature lovers who love being in the park. It's the most heavily visited trustees property on Cape Ann, with an estimated 60,000 visitors annually coming in. And then, yeah, that 10 miles of trail that we have it gets heavily used throughout the year, particularly in the autumn when all the leaves are changing. It's such a wonderful time. And then we've seen a significant increase in visitation over the past year, as has many outdoor spaces, as you can imagine, as area residents have sought safe spaces to spend time outdoors during the pandemic. So, and we're thrilled that the sites has gotten so much more attention recently. And then I've got some images here for you. So basically, you're seeing the top two images up here is the existing 10-car parking lot that we have, which just isn't adequate for the level of visitation that the park receives. It very much limits public access to this space, which, as I've said, it is quite popular. So visitors then start seeking alternative parking on Western Avenue, which is a state highway. And you can see down here, this image here, and then over a little bit more, you can see people parking on the road there. And so, yeah, this is what we're proposing to do, or what we're hoping to do with that parking space. So, with the high use of Ravenswood, anticipated to continue, we're seeking funding to expand that parking lot to accommodate 23 parking spaces, which would more than double, including 2 ADA parking spaces. And we'd also install new signage and make the entrance just in general more welcoming for visitors. These investments in the property are very critical to ensuring public access to this important community resource, but also help to mitigate safety concerns for people parking out on Route 127 there. After that, we've got a long history of carrying out a high level of stewardship for the resources in our care, and it would continue with this project after the project would be complete. Our specialized teams collaborate with staff at the regional and site level to maintain our properties. And this project would be managed by Bob Murray, who's on the call with us today, who's our structures and landscapes project director. And he's been with the trustee since 1982, so he's well versed in managing projects like this. And he would oversee the selection and hiring of contractors that we'd work with to complete the work and managing the project through completion. And then myself would be involved with our stewardship team after that to, maintain whatever the site as it were after that. So just the last slide, just to summarize, the total budget for the project is $59,900. We're requesting CPA funds to the tune of $37,700, which is 63% of our total budget. An estimated start and completion date would be spring of 2022. And that's simply because we would wait to find out, obviously from yourselves, if we were successful or not, then we could know that we could go ahead with the project. And yeah, that's really it in a nutshell, to try and keep it within our 5 minutes. And yeah, are there any questions?
Well, thank you for keeping it within 5 minutes, Sharon. We really appreciate that.
No problem. I know how busy everyone is. So,
And
yeah.
I'm sure and thank you for waiting, by the way. It's always tough to go last, so we really appreciate it.
No problem.
I have just one quick question, then I'll throw it to anybody else on the committee. It looks like the plans are pretty well done. I mean, if from what I've seen in your application, once you're funded, you're ready to go. I mean, it's not like you've got to do any other selection. It's pretty straightforward. The plan looks great. Fair to say? I mean, you've got it kind of lined up. You're just waiting for funding.
That is correct. We do know that we will need to go before planning board for site plan review. And so we were actually planning to do that this summer prior to your awarding, so that we know that it was truly shovel ready and set to go.
Great, thanks. Anybody else, questions?
Matt, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, and trustees is a great organization. I didn't realize and I've been to Ravenswood, and I would agree some of the safety concerns. I guess one question was, why did you decide on the amount of funding? The trustees, I'm a member as well, and I know it's an organization that does a very good job of raising money, but how did you decide on your request of the 63%? How did you arrive at that?
It was actually, we've been trying to advance this project for some time. We had some early drawings back, I think it was in 2016, but we're not able to sort of get the funds. We were able to sort of get additional funding this current year, but as we began the planning, the site is very rough, you may know, and a lot of boulders and so forth. So the cost for installation was more than we had anticipated, and that sort of put us in this position, asking for some additional support.
Okay, and in my understanding, based on the drawings, the additional parking would be right there to the right as you enter the driveway, going into the the main parking area today.
That's correct, and it would be
Okay.
one-way circulation to help with the general flow on site.
Right. And then the last question, maybe just for my edification, is in reading your proposal, it talked about a conservation restriction held by Essex County Greenbelt. And I didn't understand the relationship between the Essex County Greenbelt and the trustees in this particular location.
So that's not uncommon. We acquired the property in 1993. And so it's not uncommon to have another sister organization sort of hold a restriction to ensure that this property would remain sort of open to the public as open space. So there is a conservation restriction. We have the right to expand the parking here, but do need to get their approval. So we are seeking sort of that, which we'll be able to confirm.
Okay, all right, thank you. And very, succinct presentation, very well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
I had a question.
Yes, Jennifer Lee.
That was my question. Is this enough extra parking? But I guess you answered it, that's as much as you think you can get.
The site is very rough. There's a lot of boulders there. We're trying to work with the land the best we can and not have extensive site work. We think that this will cover most of the day-to-day use on, particularly busy days or in peak season. It may not be enough, but we think this will meet most of the current demand.
Okay. Thank you.
Jennifer, that's a great question. And just further to your point, like I walk my dog here all the time, most weekends, in fact, and like I've never seen it. Usually on the road, like on 127, there's usually maybe 4 or 5 cars there. So I think having this additional parking will hopefully help to alleviate all of that. But I do then wonder, if there'll be more that would continue to spill out. So it's something we'll have to continue to monitor. But as Bob said, like within the site layout, this is the most we can do at the moment. For now anyways.
Okay.
This is sort of related, but also just a question I have about the visitor center. When did that change from a visitor center there to a private residence? When did that happen? I feel like I missed that transition.
Yeah, that was the transition. I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago. The level of programming that we were trying to run there wasn't getting the enrollment or participants that we were hoping for. And so it wasn't really cost effective to do that. So we tried to focus in other areas where we were getting that. So we were able to continue to find use. Obviously, a building that's in use is in better shape than a vacant building. So we were happy to find it was actually a staff person that was living there, but is now a private rental.
So was it sold?
No. It's
okay.
owned by the trustees. It's just a lease agreement with a private party.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jared, Bob, thank you for your time and appreciate it and appreciate the presentation.
Thank you all very much again.
Yeah, thank you for your consideration.
To be with you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so committee, that concludes our presentations for the night. So we'll move on to just a review of our process. We'll have 4 more presentations next Tuesday, open meeting law permitting. Hopefully the state will figure that one out. And then I think our last meeting, we said that after next Tuesday, our next meeting would be Tuesday, August 3rd, that we would skip July. So that's the meeting schedule going forward. And I'm open to, actually, this isn't on the agenda, but I did just want to raise it because I know I'm going to kind of have my head full with a few of the notes that I've made from this, and I'm assuming next week. I think it's fine to wait until August 3rd to do a meeting where we discuss the proposals relative to each other and open it up for public comment as well. Is everybody else still okay with that? I just wanted to poll the committee to make sure we were good with that. Good.
Man, I'm okay with it. The only question I had now, since we just talked about these 4, if anybody has any questions or concerns on any of these projects, they may want to bring them up right now. Just to, to clarify any questions or concerns someone might have. I mean, I thought all the presentations were well done and we had good discussion, but.
Can I revisit my question to the Ocean Alliance? And I didn't mean it to be a question to them. I meant it to be, Jamie, are we allowed to get our money back to somebody who, I mean, if we give them 100 and something thousand and they then can raise 10 million because of it, couldn't they include our 100 and something thousand in with what they're, that 10 million and give it back to us in some form? Or is that not allowed?
That's an interesting question. Jamie, I don't know if you know anything about, but that seems to me like one that maybe to ask Stuart at the CPA about, because that goes beyond my understanding of the legislation.
Yeah, I've never seen the precedent that post-award, if there is fundraising done, that the funds are recouped. There is certainly language in the contract that indicates that, you know, CPC funding should be expended after other funding. So if there was cause for the committee to really want to lean on that and show that they'll, you know, that these funds will only be used after all other resources have been expended, there's a little bit of room there, but I've never seen it be recalled because then an organization is able to fundraise beyond their initial estimations. But again, you know, like Matt said, I'm happy to forward that question to Stuart to see if there is any precedent.
Yeah, I would like to know, but I mean, am I the only one who's thinking this way? I just think if they can raise that much money, happy to help them raise that much money, but then can they do something back for us?
Well, one thing that was interesting when Kerry and I made our site visit was they talked about their fundraising capabilities. And they talked about how they're doing whale research and that a lot of the donors that give them money, they're really interested in giving money to for research on whales, et cetera, but not really interested in preserving a building on the Gloucester waterfront, which was an interesting perspective to hear and understand for the first time. Because I was like you, thinking, why can't they just raise them? They have all this money they have to raise. Why can't they do it from their existing donors?
Oh, no, they're not. They're not doing it from their existing
Right.
donors, but we can help them become eligible to sources where they can get it. And
Right.
in that case, I don't know, could they set aside the money for themselves or can they do something? I'm just saying that can it be?
No, it's a great idea to have
I
money come back.
absolutely think we should get Stuart's opinion on this. And I forget, what's his last name, Jamie? Do you remember?
Stuart Saganor?
Yeah, Stuart Saganor. I mean, because he's always got definitive opinions of what you can and cannot do with CPC funds. So I'd love to hear what he says. All right.
You know, let it be seed money for somebody else.
Right.
Something.
I agree.
Thank you.
Good.
And the cemetery, why don't they ask for more money?
I know.
They have, you finally got her to say they have 2,000, so they have 2,000. Or did I hear that wrong? They have
200. 200, Jennifer.
that need work. Well, why aren't they doing?
Yeah.
Help me with this, please.
The only thing I could think is that there's one guy doing the work and maybe it's, well, in addition to their own fund, the small ones, maybe they want to bite off a little bit first to kind of get their feet under them. But I think we should encourage them to do more if they feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah, I just think they're so used to getting nothing that they're asking for a little. I can understand the question with the Ravenswood not wanting why they're limited.
Right.
But I'd like to know more about why this cemetery isn't trying to do more.
Yeah.
There is some possibility that the difficulty is getting enough people to work on anything in a given period of time. And I think that rather than ask for a huge amount of money and then not be able to get the people to do the work may very well be what's going on there. Because, you know, they can continue to ask for additional funding as time goes on. The problem of restoration goes on and on and on. You can't necessarily all do it at the same time is really what it is. So as much as anything else, it's a matter of there are limitations on how many people can work on how many projects at how much time, because it is a matter that it has to be done basically by hand by volunteers. And I think that's why they go for short periods and projects that they can finish. Remember, one of our problems that we've often had is people go for projects and then they can't finish them. And then we have to give the money back and that kind of stuff. If you limit the scope of the project and you can finish it, I think we feel a lot better about that than if they build the scope of the project too large and then can't finish it. And I think that's part of the problem.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, Hank. Thank you.
Thanks, Hank.
Okey doke.
Hey,
We have
speaking-
one, oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just gonna say, speaking of unfinished projects, I thought we had one other thing on the agenda.
Right, and that's what I was going to go to, the Magnolia Historical Society project extension. Because of the uncertainty surrounding the expiration of the state emergency change to the open meeting law, since everything we've done right now didn't require any votes, Pam and I thought, and Jamie too, it might be, whoops, excuse me, dog barking, sorry. She wasn't supposed to be on the agenda. We thought it best to put this off until next week, when the legislation should be clearer. We didn't want to make a vote on this, a formal roll call vote, and then have to rescind it because it wasn't actually an open meeting or something like that. So we're going to take that off the agenda and push that till next week. Hopefully next week, assuming that the legislation gets settled. So with that, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Jamie, do we need a roll call vote to close the meeting?
We haven't historically, but I'm nervous to do it any other way tonight.
I agree. So roll call vote. Carrie,
Yes.
Hank,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Jennifer Lee,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Pam on mute,
Yes.
and Bob on mute. All right, and I say yes as well. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Where's leave meeting? There it is.